The stars were silent, endless, and cold. For thousands of years, humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone was out there. Most thought space was empty. Most believed that if voices traveled across the stars, they would be lost forever, swallowed by the void. But one night, Earth heard something. It began with a signal. Weak. Broken. Almost like a whisper through a storm. The scientists at the Deep Space Listening Station in Australia thought it was static at first. A glitch in their system. Machines sometimes created noise when satellites crossed paths. But this sound was not noise. It was not random. It was a pattern. Dr. Marcus Hale was the first to notice. He leaned closer to the monitor, his tired eyes struggling to focus. It was 3:42 a.m., and the control room was empty except for him. The signal repeated, 3 short bursts, 1 long, then silence. Again. 3 short, 1 long. Again. And again. Marcus froze. His heart pounded. This was not natural. It was not a star. It was not a comet. It was someone trying to speak. He hit the record button and played it back, adjusting the filters. Slowly, like a ghost forming from fog, a voice emerged. It was not human. The accent was strange, the tone mechanical, broken, like someone trying to speak with shattered lungs. Is anyone there? Marcus's hands trembled. The words were weak, broken, but clear. Please, help us. The room felt colder, heavier. He replayed it, again and again, hoping he had imagined it. But the voice remained. A voice calling across space. A voice of something, or someone, not from Earth. He grabbed his phone and called the director of the facility, Dr. Sarah Vance. She answered groggily, half asleep. Sarah, you need to come here. Now, Marcus said, his voice shaking. She tried to brush him off, but when she heard the desperation in his tone, she agreed. 20 minutes later, she was standing beside him, watching the playback. Her face drained of color. The signal repeated. Weak. Shattered. But real. They traced the source, and the numbers made no sense. The signal came from far beyond the solar system, from a star system 40 light-years away. Too far for any human probe. Too far for anything they knew. And yet, the voice was there. Begging. They immediately contacted higher authorities, but at first, nobody believed them. The government thought it was a hoax. The military thought it was a trick. But the signal did not stop. It grew stronger each night, as if the sender was burning the last of its power to reach out. Soon, the whole world was listening. Television stations played the audio on repeat. People everywhere sat in silence as they heard the broken plea. Children cried. Parents held their families close. The voice, alien yet fragile, sounded like despair itself. Please, help us. It was the cry of someone lost in darkness. Someone who was never meant to be heard. But humanity had heard. The debates began. Was it a trap? An enemy luring Earth into danger? Or was it a genuine call for help, from a civilization dying far away? Some argued that humanity should stay silent, that answering could expose Earth's location. Others said ignoring a voice in pain would be worse than cowardice, it would be cruelty. Marcus listened to these arguments, but he could not shake the sound of the voice. It was not just fear he heard in it. It was loneliness. It was hope, fragile and desperate. Whoever they were, they had sent their cry into the void, never expecting anyone to answer. And yet, here humanity stood, listening. On the 10th night, something changed. The signal carried more words. Distorted, broken, but still understandable. They are coming. We cannot stop them. We are dying. Please, anyone. The world froze. The broadcast was replayed millions of times. People whispered the words in fear. Who was coming? Who was hunting them? Marcus stayed awake in the control room, staring at the endless stars. He had always believed humanity was small, fragile, insignificant compared to the universe. But now, the universe was looking back. A voice from the dark had reached them. No one was supposed to hear it. But humanity had. And now, they had to decide. Would they answer? Would they risk everything to help strangers beyond the stars? The silence in the room was heavier than ever. For the first time in human history, Earth was not alone. And the void was not empty. The decision to respond did not come quickly. Governments argued. Scientists debated. Soldiers warned of danger. But the world could not ignore the voice forever. The more people listened, the more they felt the weight of it. For Marcus Hale, there was no more sleep. Each night, he sat in the control room, headphones pressed against his ears, listening to the broken message over and over. He wrote down every fragment, every pause, every distortion. He was trying to build meaning from the chaos. Dr. Sarah Vance joined him. She was cautious, careful, always thinking about risk. But even she admitted one thing: if they had heard this signal, then whoever sent it had taken a terrible risk themselves. Whoever they were, they had chosen to speak, even if it meant being found by their enemy. Maybe they knew no one would come, Marcus whispered one night, his eyes bloodshot. Maybe they just wanted to be remembered. Sarah looked at him, and for once, she had no reply. On the 15th day, the world decided. Humanity would answer. It was not a single nation's choice, it was a decision made by all. The United Nations, for the first time in history, agreed on something without hesitation. A reply was crafted. Not a promise of war. Not a warning. Just a simple message, sent back across the stars. We hear you. You are not alone. The transmission was sent. A beam of radio energy, focused and precise, launched from Earth into the abyss. It would take years to reach most stars, but the origin of the cry was different. It was strange, almost as if the signal had been folded, shortened, carried through space in a way humans did not yet understand. If they could hear the voice now, maybe the voice could hear them soon. The world waited. Hours passed. Days. Nothing changed. The cry still came, still broken, still desperate. People began to doubt. Had the message failed? Had it been too weak? Or worse, had the sender already fallen silent? But then, on the 18th night, Marcus heard something new. The signal was stronger. The words clearer. The static less broken. We hear you. You answered. Marcus's hands shook. He turned up the volume, motioned for Sarah to come. Together they listened as the voice continued. We are the last. We are dying, hunted, destroyed. Please, hurry. The control room fell silent. Hurry. How could humanity hurry across light years? They had no ships that could travel so far. No technology that could cross the void in time. Yet, before despair could settle, more words came. We will guide you. A path, hidden, not safe, but faster. Follow the cry. The transmission cut. Static filled the room once more. Sarah leaned back, stunned. They know a way. Marcus stared at the screen. His entire life, space had been unreachable, a prison of distance. But now, someone beyond the stars was handing them a key. News spread quickly. The world was divided once again. Some were terrified. What if it was a trap? What if these creatures were luring humanity into the same doom that had destroyed them? Others argued that this was history, this was destiny. Humanity had always looked up, and now the stars were opening. Secret meetings began. Plans formed. The cry had given coordinates, hidden within the static, mathematical instructions, a kind of map. Scientists realized it pointed not to a planet, but to a location near Jupiter. Something was there, something that had never been detected before. Marcus and Sarah were sent with a team of specialists to investigate. The journey was not long, but the tension made it feel endless. A spacecraft launched in silence, carrying not just equipment, but humanity's first step into the unknown. When they arrived, they found it. A structure, hidden in Jupiter's shadow. It was massive, ancient, and not human. A gate. The object floated silently in the void, its surface blacker than space, edges glowing faintly with blue light. Instruments struggled to measure it. The technology was beyond anything humanity had ever built. Marcus stared out the viewport, heart racing. It's a doorway. The cry had given them a path. This was it. A gate to the stars. As the team circled the structure, a new signal burst through their comms. Louder. Stronger. They are coming. We cannot hold the gate. Hurry. The message was no longer weak. It was urgent, terrified. And this time, it was not a whisper, it was a scream. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Whoever had cried out, they were not just asking for help. They were warning humanity. Something was coming through that gate. Something not human. And humanity had just opened the door. The gate hung in the void like a sleeping giant. Silent. Watching. Its black surface reflected nothing, as if it was carved from the darkness itself. Blue light pulsed along its edges, slow and steady, like the heartbeat of something alive. Marcus Hale could not look away. Every instinct in him screamed that this was wrong. This was not meant for human eyes. And yet, it was here, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter, waiting. The message still echoed in his ears, they are coming. We cannot hold the gate. Hurry. Sarah Vance stood beside him, her jaw set tight. She had been the calm voice through all of this, but now her hands gripped the railing with white knuckles. Marcus, she whispered, what if we're not ready? He wanted to tell her she was right. Humanity was not ready. They had only just learned they were not alone. They had no fleets, no armies of starships. Earth was small, fragile, and unprepared for whatever storm lay beyond this gate. But the cry from the void was still alive, still reaching across the stars. Someone needed help. Someone had risked everything to guide them here. We don't get to choose readiness, Marcus said. We either answer, or we turn away. The team worked quickly, scanning the gate. Their instruments struggled to understand it. The surface seemed infinite, bending light, bending space. Radiation levels spiked and vanished as if the machine was adjusting itself. One scientist muttered, "It's not a machine. It's alive." Hours passed. The ship floated in silence, its crew caught between awe and terror. Then, without warning, the gate stirred. The blue light quickened. The void shimmered. And the gate opened. A wound split across the black surface, expanding outward like a giant eye. Inside was not space as they knew it. It was a swirling tunnel of light and shadow, stretching into infinity. Energy poured out in waves, rattling the ship's hull. The cry returned, sharper now, clearer. Hurry, before they come, before. The voice broke off into static. Alarms filled the ship. The sensors screamed, something was moving on the other side. Something massive. Marcus felt his chest tighten. His mind raced with the images his imagination painted, fleets of alien ships, predators crossing the stars, hunters chasing the ones who had begged for help. Sarah grabbed his arm. Marcus, we can't go through. We don't even know what's waiting. But the alternative was worse. If they turned back now, if they closed their ears to the cry, then Earth would forever live knowing it had ignored a plea for help. Humanity would be safe, for now, but it would be a silence heavy with shame. The crew argued, voices rising, fear filling the air. Some wanted to retreat, to destroy the gate if possible. Others, like Marcus, argued to push forward. And then, the choice was taken from them. The gate rippled, and something began to emerge. At first, it looked like a shadow, long and jagged, stretching unnaturally. Then more followed. Shapes that bent the light around them, outlines of vessels that looked like monsters carved from nightmares. Their hulls were covered with spines. Their engines burned with sickly red fire. Predators. The crew froze in horror as the first of the ships slid halfway through the gate. They are crossing, someone shouted. They are coming here. Panic filled the ship. Weapons. They had none powerful enough to stop this. Speed. Nowhere to run. They were too close. Too exposed. But before the predators could break through, another light surged inside the gate. Bright, brilliant, golden. A second fleet appeared, smaller, broken, damaged, but fighting. These were not predators. Their ships were curved, elegant, glowing with blue shields. Energy weapons fired in every direction as they desperately tried to hold back the larger, darker fleet. And through the chaos, the voice returned. Stronger now, not just a whisper but a desperate cry filled with courage. Humans, hear us. Do not let them through. The gate must not fall. The crew stared in shock. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. These were the ones who had cried out. These were the voices from the void. And now, they were not begging for help. They were demanding humanity to stand with them. The predators surged forward, their weapons tearing through the defenders. Explosions lit the tunnel. Ships shattered. The smaller fleet was losing. On the human ship, every face turned toward Marcus and Sarah. No one spoke, but the question was clear. Do we fight? Or do we run? Marcus looked back at the gate, at the battle raging just beyond the threshold. The predators were winning. And if they broke through, Earth would be next. His voice was quiet, steady. We can't run. If we let them through, there will be nowhere left to hide. Sarah closed her eyes, then nodded. Then we fight. The ship turned, engines flaring, weapons charging. Humanity was stepping into the fire, unready, untested, but no longer silent. The cry in the void had been heard. And now, humanity would answer not with words, but with fire. The gate was no longer silent. It was a storm of fire and shadow. On one side, the alien defenders struggled to hold their ground. Their ships, curved like silver wings, fought with desperate precision, but they were outnumbered. Each time one predator vessel fell, two more forced their way through. On the other side, the predators advanced like a swarm. Their ships were jagged, cruel, covered in spines that glowed red as they spat beams of destruction. Every blast tore through shields, ripping the smaller fleet apart piece by piece. And now, humanity was watching it all. Marcus Hale gripped the command console so tightly his knuckles turned white. This was not a simulation. Not theory. It was real war, raging just a few kilometers beyond their hull. The human ship was not built for battle. It was an exploration vessel, armed with little more than basic defenses, missiles, railguns, nothing compared to the firepower that lit the tunnel inside the gate. But it was all they had. Targets? Sarah Vance asked, her voice steady but her eyes filled with fear. The crew scrambled. Closest predator ship, bearing 048. It's breaking past their line. Marcus didn't hesitate. Lock railguns. Fire. The ship shuddered as its weapons roared for the first time in history against something not human. Slugs of metal shot across the void, striking the predator vessel mid-hull. Sparks erupted. The creature-like ship twisted, shields flickering. It turned toward them. The crew gasped. The predator fired. A beam of red energy slashed across space, grazing their shields. Warning alarms screamed through the cabin. Marcus swallowed his fear. Again. Fire again. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked. This time, the predator's shields collapsed, and the ship cracked open with a violent explosion. For the first time, humanity had killed something that was not of Earth. The defenders noticed. Their comms filled with a broken, desperate voice. Humans, you fight. You fight with us. Marcus heard cheering in the background of that alien transmission, hope, raw and sudden. They had been losing. Now, they were not alone. The human crew felt it too. Their fear turned to adrenaline. They fought harder. Every weapon was fired. Every maneuver was made with reckless courage. The predators responded with fury. Two of their ships broke off from the main battle and charged directly toward the human vessel. Their engines blazed red, their weapons hot with hunger. Two incoming. Fast. Brace. The first predator unleashed its fire, tearing through the human shields. The ship rocked violently. Panels sparked. People were thrown from their chairs. Sarah gritted her teeth. Damage report. Shields down to 40%. One more direct hit and we're finished. Marcus's mind raced. He wasn't a soldier, but something in him refused to give up. He slammed his hand against the console. Aim for their engines. Don't waste shots, cut their teeth before they bite. The crew obeyed. Railguns fired, piercing through the predator's thrusters. The ship spun wildly, flames erupting across its hull. Moments later, it broke apart. But the second predator was already on them. It launched a barrage of red fire, tearing away what little defense remained. The human vessel shook, alarms screaming louder. The lights flickered, and for a moment, all seemed lost. Then, blue energy surged between them and the Predator. One of the defender ships had thrown itself into the path, shielding the humans with its own body. The alien vessel shattered under the blast, but in its sacrifice, it gave the humans a chance. Marcus's voice broke. They died, for us. There was no time to mourn. The Predator turned again, charging for the kill. Missiles. All of them. Sarah shouted. The human ship unleashed everything it had left. Dozens of missiles streaked across the void, slamming into the Predator one after another. The monster ship burned, broke, and finally exploded into pieces. The humans cheered, breathless and shaking. For a moment, they had survived. But survival was not victory. Inside the gate, the defenders were losing ground. Their ships burned, one after another. The Predators were too many, too strong. Even with humanity's help, the tide was not turning. And then came the worst sound yet, another signal. The Predator fleet was calling reinforcements. Marcus's heart sank as his console lit up with new warnings. More ships were moving inside the tunnel. The defenders could not hold them back. The gate would fall. The alien voice returned, broken but firm. Humans, if gate falls, your world dies. You must destroy it, destroy the gate. The crew froze. Destroy the gate. It was the only connection they had to these voices, to allies across the stars. It was the key to the universe. But it was also the doorway through which monsters were coming. Sarah looked at Marcus, her face pale. If we destroy it, we may never see them again. Never know who they were. Never reach the stars. Marcus stared at the burning tunnel, the Predator fleet pouring through. His voice was heavy. If we don't destroy it, Earth won't live long enough to dream. The room fell silent. Every crew member knew what it meant. A choice. Hope or survival. And the gate pulsed brighter, as if waiting for their answer. The command deck was silent except for the alarms. The ship's hull groaned under the strain of the battle, and the blue glow of the gate pulsed like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Marcus Hale stood frozen, staring at the chaos inside the swirling tunnel. The defenders were dying, their elegant ships torn apart by Predator fire. And yet, even as they fell, they fought. They fought as if every second mattered. Because it did. The alien voice echoed again, broken but firm, carrying across the static. Destroy the gate. Save your world. The words hit the human crew like a blade. Destroy the gate. Sarah Vance's throat was dry. She turned to Marcus. If we do this, we end it. No second chances. No rescue missions. No answers to who they were. Humanity goes back to silence. Marcus's eyes stayed locked on the burning tunnel. If we don't, Earth burns. All of us. The crew looked at one another. Their ship was damaged. Their weapons were nearly spent. And yet, the Predators kept coming, their numbers swelling with each passing moment. There was no stopping them here. The decision was clear. And it broke every heart on board. Sarah gave the order, her voice heavy. Arm the reactor. Prepare overload sequence. Gasps filled the deck. To destroy the gate, they had to sacrifice themselves. The ship's reactor would detonate like a star, tearing the structure apart from within. The crew fell into silence. No one protested. Every person understood. They were not soldiers, but explorers. And now, they were guardians. Marcus's hands trembled as he began entering the sequence. His mind raced with memories, his family back on Earth, the nights he had stared at the stars as a boy, wondering if someone was out there. Now he knew. Now he had proof. And yet, he would die never truly seeing them. But he would not die in vain. As the overload began, the alien defenders noticed. A final transmission came through, clearer than any before. Humans, brave. You honor us. The void remembers. Marcus closed his eyes. For a moment, he felt peace. The Predators sensed what was happening. They turned toward the human ship, firing with fury. Red beams slammed into the hull. The lights flickered. The deck shook violently. Panels burst into flame. Reactor at 80%, a crew member shouted. We won't last until 100, another cried. Sarah gritted her teeth. Then we finish it early. Marcus slammed the final command. The reactor screamed, its core burning brighter than the sun. Energy surged through every corridor. The ship became a weapon. Marcus, Sarah whispered, her voice shaking but steady. We did what no one else could. We answered. Marcus looked at her, a small, tired smile on his lips. And humanity will live to dream. The explosion was blinding. The ship vanished in a sphere of pure white fire. The gate shuddered, its black surface cracking, its blue veins screaming with light. The energy folded in on itself, collapsing the tunnel. The predators closest to the opening were torn apart, shredded into nothing. For one final moment, the defenders cheered, a sound of hope, desperate but alive, before the gate imploded. And then, silence. The void was empty once more. Back on Earth, days later, no signal came. The cry that had haunted the world for weeks was gone. People gathered in silence, listening to nothing but static. They did not know the names of those who had gone to Jupiter. They did not know how many had given their lives. But they knew this: humanity had stood at the edge of the void, and answered. Some called it tragedy. Others called it destiny. But in the darkness, beyond human sight, a fragment of the Defender's fleet still lived. A single transmission, faint and broken, made it through before the gate collapsed. Humanity, strong. Humanity, worthy. We will find you. The message was weak, faint, like an echo carried on the wind. But it was enough. Humanity was no longer alone. And the universe now knew, Earth would not run. The world waited. 4 days, people across Earth kept their radios tuned to the deep space channels, hoping to hear the voice again. The cry that had once filled every news broadcast, every living room, every heart, was gone. Only static remained. At first, many believed the silence meant failure. That the humans who had gone to Jupiter had perished for nothing. That the gate still stood, or worse, that the predators had already crossed through. Fear spread like a shadow. But then came the reports. Astronomers announced that the strange readings near Jupiter had vanished. The strange energy pulses, the heartbeat of the gate, were gone. The structure itself had disappeared, shattered into nothing. The sacrifice had worked. The predators had been stopped. Earth was safe. For now. The news spread, and for the first time in weeks, the planet exhaled. There were no celebrations, no fireworks, only quiet mourning. Humanity had tasted the vastness of the universe, only to slam the door shut again. Marcus Hale. Sarah Vance. Their names, along with the rest of the crew, were whispered like legends. No bodies returned. No ships came back. Only their final act remained, a blaze that had sealed the stars away. Children asked their parents why the heroes had died. Parents struggled to answer. Politicians called it sacrifice. Scientists called it duty. But for the people, it was something deeper. It was proof that humanity, fragile as it was, would not turn away from the void. Weeks turned to months. The world tried to move on. Life returned to normal rhythms, though something had changed forever. People no longer looked at the night sky the same way. The stars were not just points of light anymore. They were windows. And everyone wondered, who had they saved? And who had they destroyed? But one night, in the same Australian listening station where Marcus had first heard the cry, the static broke. Dr. Lena Cruz, a young scientist who had taken Hale's post after his disappearance, was half asleep when her console lit up. At first, she thought it was interference. Another glitch. Then she froze. It was not noise. It was not random. It was a pattern. 3 short bursts. 1 long. Silence. Her heart raced. She scrambled to adjust the filters. Slowly, a voice emerged. Not broken this time, not desperate. But soft. Weak, yet alive. Humanity, you saved us. The gate is gone. The predators cannot follow. We endure. Lena's eyes filled with tears. They had not died for nothing. The defenders still lived. Somewhere beyond the stars, they had survived. The message continued, faint and fragmented. You sacrificed your own. We carry their memory. We will find another way. We will find you. And then silence again. Lena sat there for a long time, her hands trembling over the console. She knew the world would change once more. The message spread across Earth in hours. It was not like the first cry, filled with despair. This was different. It was hope. Proof that the sacrifice had meaning. Proof that the void had answered back. In classrooms, teachers told their students the story of the crew who had stood at the gate. In homes, families held each other tighter, knowing humanity was no longer forgotten. In governments, plans began, quiet, secret plans, to prepare for the day when the stars opened again. Some argued humanity should build defenses, fleets, weapons for the predators that might return. Others argued they should build bridges, ways to reach out, to reconnect with those who had been saved. But all agreed on one truth: humanity was no longer a child staring at the stars in ignorance. It had stepped into the void, fought, and survived. Sarah Vance's final words echoed in every debate, every speech, every conversation recorded from the ship's logs. We did what no one else could. We answered. Years passed. Monuments rose in cities across Earth. A great memorial was built at the base of the old listening station. On it were carved the names of the crew, the ones who had died at Jupiter. At night, the stars shone above the stone, silent witnesses to the memory of those who had gone first. And far beyond human sight, in the ruins of a burned fleet, survivors of another world whispered their own names. They remembered the humans who had fought beside them, even for a moment. They remembered the explosion that had sealed the predators away. And they made a vow. The next time they found humanity, it would not be a cry of despair. It would be an answer. Years passed. The cry from the void had become a legend. Children grew up hearing the story of the gate near Jupiter, of Marcus Hale, Sarah Vance, and the crew who gave their lives to protect Earth. Statues stood in their honor. Songs were written about them. They were remembered as the first humans who had stepped into the unknown, and never returned. But the silence did not last forever. It began with small bursts of energy, strange signals far beyond human technology. Not cries of despair this time, but structured, steady, and purposeful. For years, scientists worked in secret to decode them. Governments argued over how much the public should know. But there was no stopping the truth. Humanity was being guided again. Maps, equations, designs for engines that bent space in ways once thought impossible, all hidden within the signals. Whoever had sent them was teaching humanity to reach beyond its own cradle. And after decades of effort, Earth succeeded. A ship was built, not like any before. It was called the Answer. Its engines were shaped by human hands but powered by alien mathematics. It was the first vessel capable of crossing the stars. The launch was watched by billions. Across every screen, people held their breath as the Answer lifted from its dock, shimmering with the power of new technology. Humanity was no longer trapped. Marcus Hale and Sarah Vance's names were painted on the ship's hull. They were not forgotten. The journey was long. The void stretched endlessly, but this time humanity was not wandering blind. Coordinates had been given, a star marked long ago in the whispers of survivors. And after months of travel, the ship arrived. What they saw was both beautiful and tragic. The planet was scarred, its surface blackened by fire. Oceans boiled away. Cities burned to dust. But above it, orbiting the dead world, was life. Ships, damaged, patched together, but alive. The survivors of the defenders. When the Answer sent its greeting, silence followed. 4 hours, nothing came. Then, slowly, a voice filled the comms. Not broken. Not desperate. Strong. Humanity. You came. The crew on board wept. The message spread instantly back to Earth, and billions wept with them. A transmission followed, not just sound but images. The survivors showed their faces at last, tall, slender beings with eyes that glowed faintly blue, their bodies marked with scars from war. They looked tired. They looked wounded. But they were alive. And they remembered. You saved us. When all hope was gone, you chose to stand. You gave your lives for ours. We carry your names in our memory. Now we give you ours. The names of their people filled the comms, spoken in a language strange but clear. Humanity was no longer speaking to shadows. The void had faces now. The survivors shared their story. They were once a great civilization, spread across many systems, until the predators came. They fought, but they were pushed back, system by system, until only fragments remained. The gate near Jupiter had been their last chance to reach out, to call for help. And someone had answered. The predators were still out there, beyond the stars, watching, waiting. But now, humanity was no longer alone. Two civilizations were joined, bound by sacrifice and blood. Back on Earth, leaders met. Plans began. Not just for war, but for alliance. Exchange. Growth. For the first time in history, humanity had true allies beyond its own world. And yet, there was unease. The predators had not been destroyed, only delayed. They would come again. Stronger. Hungrier. The survivors warned humanity, the void is vast. The predators are many. But so are we. Together, we will endure. Marcus Hale and Sarah Vance had never lived to see this day, but their legacy burned brighter than any star. Humanity had not turned away from the cry in the void. It had answered. And now, when the predators returned, they would not find a lonely planet of fragile creatures. They would find humanity standing shoulder to shoulder with new allies. The universe had changed. The cry in the void had been heard. And humanity's answer had only just begun.